it up for comments or questions. Not that I'm going to have any answers, to be honest with you, but at least I've thought through some things. We can sort of think through them together. Um, I want to share some ideas or some levels of comprehension that I have about what is taking place. I'm not even sure where I'm going to go with all this. I just have a few notes written down, but I want to address with you so that you begin to prepare yourself for what is actually, it's not coming, it's already here. It's already here, and it's just unfolding in front of us so rapidly that the new technology that was just introduced in November was upgraded in March. And if you remember when the first iPhone came out, I didn't know if it even had a number. But now we're at 12 or something now? In those short amount of years, from that first iPhone to now, imagine what the new AI technology will be 2 years from now or 3 years from now. So to introduce it, my first interaction with new life-altering or life-blurring technology was virtual reality games. And I was at some event with David, and we walked past, and they were having these guys put on these goggles and shooting each other. So he stood over there. It wasn't him, it was somebody else, I forget. But they stood over there in a closed-in area with the mask on I did, and we were immersed in this just lines. It wasn't even good imagery, but lined world, and we were hunting each other behind these blockades. And it was very realistic to the point that I'm moving and I didn't know I was doing it, but I was ducking behind things as I'm waiting to shoot over the other person. And it was a very real experience. Then just a few years later, my nephew gets a virtual reality experience like Sega or something. I forgot what it was, but it was me going up into a tower and walking off on a plank. And I'm in the living room, and I'm wearing the virtual reality, I don't know, with the goggles, whatever they had. I had that on, and in front of me was a 12-inch long plank walking out over the street, 73 stories up in the air or something. I knew I was in the living room. I had just put this on, but it was so realistic. I looked down, and I froze. And I'm trying to walk on this thing in front of me, and I'm going like I'm losing my balance. There's nothing but flat floor, and I'm trying to walk on this thing like that, and I got so discouraged that I could not overcome that vision. And this was 5 or 6 years ago. It was very simplistic. Now it's so realistic, I don't know how you know the difference. So then I took it off, and I said, I'm going to walk off that plank. I'm going to make myself walk off the plank. So I walked out to the plank, then I got there, and I thought, what if I step off this plank, and my brain and my heart cannot make the difference, and I have a heart attack? So I went, and I slowly pulled like this, and then as I'm trying to walk back into the elevator, somebody got behind me and bumped me. I almost had a heart attack. That was virtual reality. That is nothing compared to what is here and coming at 90 miles an hour. If you add to that the influence of social media, which all the most prominent ones, Twitter and TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, WhatsApp, and YouTube, there's a new way of accruing information that the world is telling us. There's a whole lot of misinformation and disinformation, and that's certainly true. But they sort of have that categorized as anything that is of a conservative nature you can't trust. But the social media is just full of misinformation and good information. You can get some great stuff on social media, but you can also get some very disturbing stuff, which is why we've seen the rapid rise of this gender confusion in America, because it is charming, fun-loving, happy people who are saying, they don't even say gender dysphoria anymore, but I identify as this, and I'm happy, loving, kind, and young people are seeing that, and they look at the old standards, and, well, you people are mean and unkind, and that's nice. And it's changing moral perspectives, whether we realize it or not. It's the same thing Hollywood's been doing for years, same thing music industry's been doing for years. We all idolize, or we all follow or enjoy certain movie actors and actresses or singers. but their lives are probably profoundly immoral. But we set that apart because their art is so beautiful. That social media is changing the bedrock of how our young people decide what's right or wrong. You throw into that artificial intelligence, which is something right out of science fiction that is has great potential for good and almost an immeasurable potential for bad. It's being used right now in medicine. And the bioethics committee that I'm on, both at the hospital and in the Florida Bioethics Network, we have been discussing the extreme implications of using AI as a diagnostic and a prognostic tool. And not that we're not doing it, but we're thinking about it. We're doing it right now. And what does it mean? When a computer system with a rapidly assessing thought process can determine somebody's diagnosis and somebody's prognosis, rather than a human being doing it. There's a lot of good to that. It eliminates the emotional quotient and eliminates bias, but it also can become incredibly harsh. And the way I look at AI, artificial intelligence, is if someday, if it's allowed to make decisions on a broad scale rather than just patients or a car or a system, if it is in control of anything, the United States of America, which is the greatest nation, I believe, in the history of the world, the greatest experience of freedom and individual expression and generosity and kindness towards the rest of the world, where we've come to their aid, if we, a generation ago, could come to the conclusion that killing hundreds of thousands of Japanese in an instant was a better resolution than continuing the war, making that mathematic calculation that this will save hundreds of thousands of American lives, so we'll obliterate 2 Japanese cities in a blink of an eye. You don't think AI could make that same decision without any emotional bond or barrier? I certainly think it could. Here's some things that AI is currently doing. Art, music, literature. It is generating art. It's generating music to the point they can take somebody's voice and produce a song in their style with their voice, and only somebody who really knows the difference would be able to know that's not that artist. It's done in literature. AI can now write works of literature using a writer's style. I saw about 2 weeks ago on MSN News page, which is the page that I go to between that and Fox News. I go back so I can get the two extremes. There was an ad on there for sermons written by AI. And I would bet you the AI sermons are pretty good. My son has shown me some answers to some theological questions produced by AI, and the answers were great. Do you want sermons presented by AI, or do you want it presented by a human? Well, if you know all the humans that I know and myself, yeah, maybe AI would be better than having a flawed human telling us what God said. But do you really want to entrust it to that? Transportation, there are some cities, particularly in Japan, where the city mechanisms and lights are already being controlled by AI. Law enforcement, predicting a crime before it happens because of what you know from the information given to an AI system. AI is used not only in medicine, it's used in many fields right now where we're not being told about it. Commerce and produce, as to what is available, being determined by artificial intelligence based upon, well, you have 15 million people living in this city and 2,000 in this city. Which city needs really the most supply? And AI makes that decision and determines the transportation routes and the supply chain because it's thinking purely efficiency. Will AI regard humanity as being anything different than animal life or plant life? Or will it follow the left's viewpoint today that animal life and plant life is really sort of more important than human life? What if AI embraces that? These are some headlines I saw in the last 2 weeks. The U.S. Navy is using unmanned AI-driven ships to counter smuggling and illegal fishing. AI-driven ships out in the water, patrolling. I'm not sure how that plays out. AI tech can crack common passwords with stunning speed, a study showed. These are all headlines. AI affects human interaction. I read that article, and it said it removes the emotional complexities. It helps somebody create an alter ego. It compromises authenticity, though, and then it eliminates spontaneity because everything can be planned out and mapped out through your alter ego personality. On some of the social media aspects now, you choose an avatar, and it's sort of a cartoon image of you, and you can choose its qualities. Well, that's just starting. Pretty soon you'll be able to create an entity that is you, and it won't be long until it's 3D and a hologram. AI is used right now in 4D sonograms. For those who were at the Sarasota Medical Pregnancy Center banquet, they revealed to us their 4D machine, which was amazing. It was the 3D image of a baby in the womb, but because of AI, which it uses, it then takes the different pictures that it takes of the baby in the womb and puts them together and adds motion, and you can see the baby in the womb moving. AI is used in a 4D sonogram. It's a beautiful thing because that 4D sonogram almost convinces every mother who sees it, I can't abort this child. So it's a beautiful thing, but that's AI. It's being used a whole lot more than we think. Elon Musk has warned of the adverse effects on two primary things, elections and economics. He was saying that 5 or 6 years ago with the self-driven car. He was explaining how the car learns. The cars are all connected to the other cars, so they're all learning together. So this car may never have seen one of those ridiculous European circles that are now all over Sarasota. It may never have seen one, but the car over there has seen one and has told this car how to do it. He said that they learn at an exponential rate. And he was 5 years ago saying, we need to put a cap on that. There needs to be some kind of buffer because it won't stop learning. We don't know where it will go. Our fear is AI intelligence will go evil. But maybe because it's not sin-based, maybe it wouldn't go evil. But the problem is all the programmers are sin-based beings. So the programming has been done by some fairly questionable people because they're people, and we're all questionable. This was a question, can the original programmer implant values and perspectives? And we know the answer to that question. It's yes. Because the AI gets all of its information from the original programmer, but then it keeps collecting. So you can't create, like, say, a 6-year-old AI, and it's going to stay 6 years old. It'll be 7 years old before you blink your eye. Then it'll be 8 years old. It will continue to learn at an incredible rate. My son, who has done much more research on this than I have, he was telling me about an editing program for podcasts. Have you ever seen a podcast? Sometimes it's 2 people talking like this. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 at a table. And they'll have 4 or 5 different cameras to give you different angles. So when this person's talking, the camera is right there. If somebody interrupts, the camera switches over there. Well, you can do a podcast now, and then there's usually a human being editing it or controlling the cameras back and forth. You can just simply record your podcast and put it into this AI software, and an hour-long conversation in 30 seconds can be perfectly edited by AI. Where it can do it like that. What we're now paying somebody to do, AI can do it in seconds. It can inherently know what camera angle best matches this conversation. When there's 3 people talking, how to back out and let the viewer see all 3 of them. It knows how to go this way, that way. AI does it in seconds. You just pop it in, hit edit, and it's done, ready for production. Well, that's being done in movies, it's being done in music, but it shows you how quickly AI thinks. Will AI, or can AI, develop on its own? At a certain point, can it decide what path it wants to go down? And the answer to all these questions is yes. Everybody's hoping the answers are no. But when they're really honest, they're going, right now, we don't know a way to stop it. Will AI reason like humans? It might for a little bit until it realizes we're idiots. And we don't reason very well. And we're totally inefficient. Will it prioritize humanity? I already brought that up. Will AI be able to circumvent any of the restrictions and buffers imposed by the developers? I have a good friend in Buffalo who has, over the years, squirrels who terrorize his backyard. And he's come up with numerous ways to prevent their involvement with his garden and his trees. And he has strung things across. He's put little tiny razor blades on it. And the things he's done to keep these squirrels out of his bird feeders, the squirrels circumvent all of them. These are little rodents who can figure out how to get past your ingenious trap. And if you've ever seen some of those videos, it's amazing what a squirrel can figure out. If a squirrel can do it, you think anything we put on AI is going to keep it from going around it? I think that's a legitimate fear. My main concern is this: will other countries adhere to the AI restrictions and buffers imposed by the United States technology? Will China respect our restrictions? Will Russia? Will India? Will Israel? And the most frightening question is, will the United States? The United States could say, we're going to put a buffer on this A, but it will be for us. It won't be for them. The government is not going to restrict or restrain any power it can get its hands on. It's what the founding fathers knew. That's why they said, you got to put checks and balances on government, because it by nature will seize all the power, because power is efficiency. Power is control. You think if a government is given the ability through AI to manage 300 million people efficiently, coldly, they won't do that if it's to preserve the Union. We fought a war in the United States, an unjust war called the Civil War. Because the North won, we have a wonderful, great nation, but it violated the Constitution, the states' rights. A good came from it, but somebody decided to maintain the Union, we have to supersede the rights of individual states to govern themselves the way they want. And America was forever changed because of that. And America was saved as a nation, but some aspects of the Constitution was forever lost because of that. AI can make the same kind of decision. For the sake of the whole, one piece must suffer. This is another thing. AI right now is developing, it's the fastest developing technology in the world. It's developing faster than the legal, ethical, and practical implications can even be understood. You and I can't even ask all the questions that should be asked before we proceed, but we're already proceeding. It's like we're saying, should I go over here? I wonder if I should even walk over here. I probably shouldn't even walk over here. I wonder if we're going 90 miles an hour, right, towards this inevitable end, and we're not even asking, we don't even know what questions to ask because we've never been there. No one's ever been there. The closest to it would be Schwarzenegger's movies, The Terminator. And that seems to be such ridiculous, far out. All the experts now are saying that's not far out. That's not just science fiction. That's science as we know it today. That's AI in general. What I also want to bring up to you was ChatGPT, which is a form of AI. It's a format presented by OpenAI, which is a global company. And they offered up their first one back in November, not even a year ago, called ChatGPT 3.5. ChatGPT 4 came out March 14th. And the GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. That means that something has been programmed to take information and put it together and generate more and more information. That generative means it's a reproductive term and chosen that way for on purpose. It means that this ChatGPT can reproduce and produce, as in human reproduction, brand new entities, brand new thoughts, brand new ideas. And it does so by connecting a whole bunch of people, putting in input, and it's doing its own analysis, and it does it incredibly rapidly. So this, which came out in March, ChatGPT 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 are already being worked on. ChatGPT 4 is frightening with its capabilities. Just imagine what's coming. And nobody here can do anything to stop it. It's going to come. China has stated they will require their Chat GPT style chatbots, which is chatbot is a category, Chat GPT is a particular one, to fall in line with communist core values. So China believes at this point they can make it express and generate communistic value system. And maybe they can for a while, but AI could easily see that that's not an efficient system either, because communism and socialism produce poverty everywhere it goes. Well, they could also say something about free market enterprise, that creates incredible wealth but keeps people down here. AI could decide that's not a good way. AI could come up with an entirely different social and economic structure. And then if it has the power to impose it, it would. AI chatbots right now can spew falsehood and deep fakes so real you won't know that's not that person doing what that thing is showing it's doing. A chatbot AI can generate an accusation of a crime and present the evidence without it ever happening, and you wouldn't be able to discern that that's not true. Now, that's today. What about 5 years from now? Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen some of the video clips of it. They've taken an old actor or actress and they've made him younger and put him into well, you can sort of tell because the way they move and the way their eyes go, but it looks pretty real. 5 years from now, will we be able to know the difference? Is that what the book of Revelation is talking about? The beast that comes alive? Is it an AI entity that is so realistic you can't even tell that it's not a living? And then there's one more thing that will open up for your comments or questions. I don't know where we can go with this, but it's the quantum computers. Quantum, not just quantum physics and quantum science, but quantum computers that right now they can process trillions of data points in a millisecond. One expert I saw today on a news report said that the quantum computers right now that we have right now make the supercomputers of the world look like kindergartners counting on their fingers. You add AI to a quantum computer, and I'm sure you've seen the word, it's called godlike. When this AI computer system or AI, whatever it might be, attached to quantum computer assessing ability and rapidity, it will appear to have godlike knowledge. That's frightening, but as I was walking today, I was thinking, you could have all the quantum computers in the world and all the AI 100 years from now, and it would still pale in comparison to the knowledge of the creator of the universe. That's how much God knows. But I'm saying all this, I don't want to be a doomsday prophet. I'm not trying to scare everybody. I just feel the need to just pique our interest that our world is going to change in the same way the Industrial Revolution changed the world, in the same way that the discovery of America changed the world, in the same way that the church going outside of Jerusalem changed the world. This is going to change our world. It will probably greatly change economics. It will greatly change what jobs are available. I don't know what creative people are going to do. How can a craftsman come close to creating a piece of art that the third generation of AI could produce? What role will they play? Well, these machines just do all of our thinking, and then we just become inhabitants on this beautiful, perfect world of AI technology. The challenge to us is we have a tangible, organic faith rooted in a manuscript called the Word of God and dwelt by the Spirit with an ancient gospel that goes back all the way to the Garden of Eden. Will it withstand this assault? Yes, it will. It will withstand everything. But you and I might falter if we're not prepared to deal with the realities of a modern world that pretty soon is going to tell you something about UFOs. It could all be fake, but it's on the news line every day. The videos more and more every day. They're about to tell us something that's going to rock the very core of many Bible-believing Christians. When they hear this thing or they see this claim or something happens, they're just inching it closer and closer. Are we ready to stand? Well, we can be ready if we put our faith in the Lord, don't doubt the Word of God, trust in Him, and know that God is in control of all of this, and not be undercut or undermined or devastated by the rise of technology, which in the next 5 years is going to increase so rapidly, it'll be the most rapid increase in knowledge in human history. One of those UFO videos, that one with that little tic-tac thing that was flying like that and made some alterations, one expert said that's either a hoax or it's the greatest technological invention in human history. It's one or the other. Well, AI is on the verge of changing everything. And what do you do in the face of inhumanity? You become more human. You become more humane. You trust in God. You trust in the Creator and how He has made us. And don't shrivel away in fear. And don't dwell in ignorance. Don't cover up your eyes so you don't hear any of this stuff. Be prepared for it, because it's going to be our modern world. Now it's 11:35, so I don't want to keep it forever, but anybody have any comments or questions? Because you might know a whole lot more than I do.
I have a question.
Yes.
You didn't really touch on it.
Would you bring the, wait for your microphone, so people are watching on live stream.
Oh.
And give your address and phone number so they can call you. So.
Okay. You didn't really touch on the bank.
Yes.
I mean, a few years ago, who would have thought that a debit card, because I was certainly not amenable to this, but now I have a debit card and I use it just like a regular credit card as long as the money's in my bank. What about the central bank? How do you think that could affect how we survive?
I'll answer real quickly. That's actually a whole other class on the CBDC, the central bank digital coin. It is the government's, and I say government's plural, it's the world's government's response to what happened in Canada. Remember when they had that trucker COVID protest, and they seized the Canadian truckers' banks accounts and froze their money? The only ones they couldn't freeze were those who had digital coinage. They couldn't control those guys. Those guys had money available to them that the bank system couldn't control. Well, Trudeau and Canada and every other government on earth saw that. And from that came this thrust. We need to have a central bank that controls digital coins because, and there's a whole bunch of rational reasons for it and efficiency reasons for it, just like there was for the debit card and the Social Security number and all that. But my concern is, the real concern is to control everybody's wealth. Because if it's a central bank digital coin, you don't really own it. It's just a digital recording in a bank. You don't have that yourself on your computer. It's held someplace else in your name. You step out of line, click, you no longer have any access to your wealth. You remember in the Bible, and the Bible talks about the mark of the beast and how you cannot buy or sell without the mark of the beast? It's a very similar dynamic with digital coins. If there's one central bank that controls all of it, they tell you if you have it or not, and what you can even spend it on. Or what proportion of it can you spend on this? What proportion can you spend on that? Will it even allow donations to a church? That could be considered an anti-government action. That would be non-patriotic. And you can't use your money. And you have no money in the first place. It'll be on a card, or it'll be on a watch, or it'll be on your phone. It won't be in your pocket where you can change hands with money. It's all electrical, digital currency. It's a control device. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Unless there is some kind of amazing revival in the United States and a return to sanity. But, you just watch sports right now, and you see these incredibly muscular, strong men dominating women in sports, and sports announcers applauding it. And the courage they're showing, and the wonderful journey they've gone through, and the personal sacrifice. Well, there's some woman who spent her whole life learning that sport, just got beat to death by a man who wanted to be a martial arts in the female world. And people are seeing that. They know they have to know it's not right, but they can't say it. Well, that world is coming. The digital coin, unless there's an amazing change in American culture and revival, and I don't mean this to be political in any way, but a return to some kind of conservative, traditional American principles. Digital coinage is next, and then we have become a tyranny. And it'll be without a gun, without a shot being fired. Now, then the other question is, who owns that central bank? Is it the United States, or is it going to be China? Right now, if you want to bet, China. China has already taken over South America and Africa. It's investing in buying governments to be pledging their commerce to them. Money is the weapon of the day. And if China takes control, and they're the ones who do the CBDC, America is an afterthought and a memory. And it's all done to lower the playing field, to make personal wealth impossible to acquire unless you play by the rules imposed by a particular government. And so it makes us all slaves. I know it sounds dystopian and it sounds overreaction, but it's coming, and only God can stop it, but God might intend for it. This might be the way the end comes. I don't know. You had a question over there?
Pastor, what do you think this plays into just uniting the entire globe so the Antichrist can rule as one government and one universal entity?
Well, I think it's essential, and it's sort of obvious now. It is one of the mechanisms, but the other mechanism, if you've noticed, and if you're my age, you're probably still shocked by this, but this global support of transgenderism. It's not just an American phenomenon. It's all over the world at the same time. How did this happen all over, out of nowhere, all of a sudden? People identifying as a completely different biological gender, and you have to respect that identity and treat them as such. How is that happening in Belgium and Russia and America and African countries all at once? We don't like to think that there's a controlling force over the world, Illuminati kind of thing, but there is somebody pulling the strings, working towards world dominance. And if you think about history, that's always been a desire of powerful men, emperors and dictators and conquerors. Their desire has always been to take over the world. Well, we live in a day where it's possible. Culturally, it's happening, and then economically, it's happening, and someday it might be governmentally. But those two things will probably happen first. And the group on the out is the American individualistic Christian. Neither one have the practice of submitting to people above them. America is this unique identity of we're independent. Young people now don't see that as a strength. Young people today see socialism as a viable, healthy way to live. It's more fair, it's more equitable. The American spirit is dying. Christianity's influence is fading. It's all coming together. And once they control the money, they control it all. Back in the back. Yes, sir.
Yes, I talked to a number of pastors about this subject and also individuals. Two questions. How do you answer pastors who say this is a distraction from the gospel? And the other is Christians, they say, well, this is too overwhelming, I can't think about it. How do you answer to a Christian and how they should approach this subject, on a practical basis?
Well, I would say from a personal level, I could easily be both of those people. I could easily say, this is just such a distraction from the call to preach the gospel, I don't even want to get into it. And I could say, this is so overwhelming, I don't even want to think about it. So I understand and sympathize with that. But the way I understand the gospel ministry is, Jesus presents it in agricultural terms, where we're farmers, we're planting seed, and then some are watering and we're harvesting. Well, implied in the farming technique is preparing the soil. And if we want to have soil that can receive the seed, we can't stand by and let the soil turn to rock, or the seed won't go into it, which is my concern about this sexual identity stuff. it so blurs it, you can't even tell anybody what even form of sex is wrong or not biblical. Well, who are you to say? Because the Bible says 2,000 years ago, and they dismiss the morality of it. And then from sex, it's what is murder? How do you tell people something's murder when it's okay to kill children in the womb? That's all part of that blurring. Well, that makes the soil hard. It was Jesse Jackson back in 1977 said, what does it do to a society or culture that promotes or accepts the killing of babies in the womb? Well, 50 years later, we now know what it does. It hardens it to the respect for life and any sense of absolute right or wrong. So my answer to the question, I think as ministers and as churches, we're obligated by our call to the gospel to do what we can to keep our soil viable to receive the seed, to whatever power we have that ability. If we don't have any ability like the Christians in ancient Rome or believers in Muslim countries, we don't have an ability to affect the soil, then we preach and we plant. But in America, we still have that ability. I think God will hold us accountable for not using our political process to vote and express our opinion and vote good candidates in. It's our fault if we don't use that mechanism. But then I'm a student of Francis Schaeffer, and Francis Schaeffer's book, The Christian Manifesto, if you ever read it, it'll pretty much explain to you Pastor Dave's viewpoint on politics. It's not the call of the church, but the church should be affecting politics. The church should be affecting art. We gave up art back in the 40s. We let Hollywood go. We said, no, art is for them. Education is for them. Well, where did art and education go? To the toilet. Because we weren't salt and light. So, I understand why anybody would want to do either one of those, stay away from it altogether, but I think we have a responsibility in terms of effectiveness to keep our soil soft as best we can.
How do we as Christians live outside of this system? Are we prepared to have a system of our own?
It's a good question. The answer, I think, is there will be no alternate system. And the other thing we didn't bring up is GPS. You know, in ancient times, and Christians can go run and hide, they can have private. If you have a cell phone, if you have a car, the government will know wherever you are at all times. So if Christians are going to exist outside of the system, it'll mean with no cell phones, no cars probably dated past 1970, with no GPS in them at all, gas-powered, which they're trying to get rid of gas-powered. Why do you think that is? That's independence. And then it'd be bartering. We can't use the CBDC. So there is no real mechanism for Christians to exist in a nice little Amish bubble outside of the world. It's going to be that, or you're hunted down, and it'll be like it was in Rome. Doesn't mean that we're defeated. It means that we'll die. But the faith won't be defeated. The faith will always rise, and the blood shed by martyrs will always give flower to the next generation. But what's coming is something like the world has never seen before, because there's no place to run and hide. There is no such thing as privacy already at this point. If you've ever been on a computer, everything you've emailed, texted, looked at, it's recorded somewhere. No such thing as privacy. If you haven't had your credit card violated or misused at least once, you're just fortunate, because it's as easy. Somebody just hasn't got to it yet. You'd have to go almost completely back to the Stone Age